Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first webinar hosted by HOYT-International. My name is Richard Oldman and I am the Managing Director of HOYT. I sincerely hope that by the end of today's event, that this and all future webinars will provide much valuable information for all of us. I am fortunate enough to have spent 50 years in this great industry of ours and have had the privilege of working all around the world. My experience over the last 16 years working in the Middle East and Africa have shown me just how important this region is and how poultry production specifically plays a major role in the economy. HOYT is very proud to be the regional science-based distribution hub for the Indonesian poultry vaccine manufacturing company, Vaksindo, part of the JAPFA group. Having launched the range of vaccines at both the VIV MEA in Abu Dhabi and more recently, the Middle East Poultry Expo in Riyadh, we, together with Vaksindo, are delighted today to share just some of the knowledge within the Vaksindo team and sincerely hope that you enjoy the topic of causes and prevention of Newcastle disease virus, induced egg production drop in breeders and layers. Today, I take the opportunity to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Teguh Prajetno, the Senior Vice President of the JAPFA Group. Following his achievement of gaining his PhD in molecular biology from the University of Technology Aachen, Germany, Dr. Teguh has spent the last 27 years building his reputation and expertise in the poultry vaccine world. Starting at Bayer AG Germany as a research associate, and then at Intervet in both sales and marketing positions in the Netherlands and then Indonesia. He then joined multi-breeder Adorama as head of poultry health and lab services. And then 6 years later in 2008, when JAPFA acquired the business of PT Vaksindo Satwa Nusantara, he became president director of Vaksindo. In the next years, he added to his areas of responsibility by in 2011, becoming senior vice president, head of poultry health and lab services of JAPFA Comfeed Indonesia. And then in 2017, becoming president of PT Agranusa Jaya Santosa, another subsidiary of JAPFA. Along the way, Dr. Teguh has regularly published many papers between 2007 and today on many aspects of viruses in poultry. During the course of the meeting, if you have any questions, please type them in using the QA function at the bottom of your screens. After the presentation, the questions will be shown on the screen and Dr. Teguh will give his answers. So now I have great pleasure in handing over to Dr. Teguh for his presentation.
So, Newcastle disease. Newcastle disease is a negative sense RNA virus, single-stranded. You have a RNA band here. It belongs to the family of Paramyxoviridae, and there are 9 species within the family, and only number 1, avian paramyxovirus 1, is denoted as Newcastle disease virus. It is an old virus. It has been first diagnosed or identified by a Dutch veterinarian, Kraneveld in Buitenzorg, which is now today is a city of Bogor, Indonesia, in West Java. This is by chance also the location of Vaksindo as well. And then in 1927, Doyle has published in his paper about this virus, in particular it's coming from India. So in India, it has been found in two cities, Ranikhet and Chennai. That's why in India, the disease sometimes is called also Ranikhet disease. In 1935, Doyle, actually based in Newcastle, and denoted it as Newcastle disease. Newcastle disease is a list A OIE disease. So there are only 2 list A disease in OIE. This is avian influenza and Newcastle disease. And this virus has impacted globally. You can see those are the countries has been reporting Newcastle disease outbreaks to the OIE between 2014 to 2019. You can see almost half of the globe, or 2/3 of the globe, are affected. Then if we talk about transmission, we have to be aware that basically a part of the main aerosol part, of course, direct contact with contaminated clothes, formats, and this goes on, visitors, equipment, sacks, feed sacks, egg crates, wild birds, etc. can transmit the virus between flocks and will cause basically the outbreak. And in particular, if we see in Asia, we have seen still in particular broiler farms, we have multi-age farms. In layers, particular, we have also multi-age farms. And of course, we need to be aware that in between flocks, we need to have adequate downtimes to prevent decontaminations of NDB in our operations. Incubation time is 4 to 6 days, and it's similar to AI. Basically, if you see a problem with your flock and you can trace back, it started about 1 week ago with the infection phase. If we talk about ND in breeders, we can see basically a unique pattern. Yeah. So if you are talking about young birds, so I talk between the ages of 5 to 10 weeks, you mainly see clinical signs. Yeah, this is due to the case that the birds have been vaccinated, but not properly vaccinated or not enough vaccinated, and the antibody titer is still low, and so they cannot prevent the infections. And then if you get infected, you will see clinical disease, yeah, in the rearing period. But once the bird coming to production and between point of lay and peak production, you rarely see clinical signs, because basically your flock is well vaccinated, and then what you see will be merely egg production drop here. So it could be slightly, but it could be also severe like this. Yeah, it could be without trigger, but some of the trigger is, of course, if you have a live vaccine, or you have management issues like ventilation issues and ammonia issues. It can make the disease or the egg production drop more severe. And in Asia, I've seen that people basically they couldn't differentiate between Newcastle disease and H9N2. Yeah, so the eggs they look the same. Yeah, so basically you have these breeder eggs or the layer eggs, the brown layers, and then you turn white and pale and thin shelled, and then you have also some shellless egg if this, the oviduct is heavily impaired. Yeah, so basically in Newcastle disease, it is a high path virus. It is a very velogenic, and once it affects your flock, even you are vaccinated, you will see this. But in H9N2, you will see this only if the flock is non-vaccinated. Yeah, once the flock had been vaccinated, you will not see these clinical signs anymore. Yeah, so once you have the egg drop like this, you can say in 80% of the case, it is Newcastle disease rather than H9N2. Yeah, if you vaccinate both of the both diseases. Yeah, so what we see basically it's the oviduct is impacted. Yeah, you see fibrinous clots and edema in the oviduct, and it is very difficult for the farmers or for the field vets to differentiate between H9 and ND. But again, ND 80% in all the egg production drop cases, we found it was due to ND. In broiler, you see, of course, it is a young bird. You see mortalities and clinical signs. You can see the mortality pattern after third week is increase, and then basically, if the bird still alive, a lot of farmers used to sell it to the farmers to the market and and prevent the being economical loss, and so you will see a lot of people they are selling in Asia. Yeah, I don't know in other cases, but this is the mortality pattern in cumulative. You see the increase. In this case, is cumulative depletion or mortality of 43%. Yeah, and then you will see all the clinical signs like proventiculitis, and then you will see in the Harderian gland, trachea, and then you will see even here in the bursa, a lot of the cases people will think this is Gumboro, but this is really because of Newcastle disease. So we have been vaccinated over and over again, and then we expect with the same vaccine, with the same method, and we expect a different result. And this is where Albert Einstein said it is insane to do something over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah, and now we have to understand the virus. We have to understand what is going on in the birds, and then we have to understand what we need to prevent further egg production drop or cases in broilers. So, what is the objectives of ND vaccination? First, of course, we want to minimize clinical diseases and mortalities. This is the first premise we want. Yeah. And we want to prevent over-replication of the virulent ND virus in the chicken, and consequently, the chicken will shed the virus into the environment and spread the virus within one premise, or maybe to a different premise next to our premise. Yeah, and of course, if by protecting against the infection, we will maximize productivity and performance. This is the target given by the vaccine manufacturer, but all the current ND vaccines have not been designed to prevent infection. So there is one of the ND vaccine can prevent infections. And consequently, in layers and in breeders, you will face egg production drop. Yeah. So this is what you currently cannot prevent. Yeah. So this is where my presentation is focusing at in the couple slide after this. So we have to understand there is no sterile immunity in any veterinary vaccine. Yeah. So why? Because there's a lot of factor which actually can make the vaccination process not suitable and to prevent infections. One, you have infections, you have inflammation, and then you have the immune response. But this inflammation part, I've shown you already with the oviduct, this is causing the egg production drop. Yeah. So we have to understand how the immune response works. Yeah. It has always to go through an inflammation process first. Yeah. So that's why we cannot prevent infection. The only way to prevent infections and disease, consequently, is biosecurity. Yeah, so the three pillars is very important. The second one is management, and the third is vaccination. So with biosecurity, we want to prevent or to reduce the field exposure, reduce the amount of pathogens in the field. With the management, we want, of course, the bird to perform, but giving the bird all you need to perform, but also overall, we need to make them strong enough to cope with the disease. Just for instance, you have a breeder house with a density of 5.9 birds per square meter, and the other one is with 3 birds per square meter. of course, the 5.9, if both are challenged, will break first. Yeah, so this is we need to understand the management impact on health control as well. And then the last point is we talk about vaccination, because we need to increase the specific resistance to the particular pathogen. And this is what we have learned in my last 20 years, actually, in poultry. We actually have a lot of farms, breeder farms, for instance, and they share, of course, centralized services. We have the hatchery, we have the feed mill, we have trucks going between collecting eggs and bringing it to the hatchery and back. We have engineers, projects going on, fixing things. We have veterinarian visiting between farms. We have visitors. We have contact between a central lab to different farms. All these central services may actually be affected of one of these ND infected farms and will spread to others. Yeah, so we have to understand then how we can actually cut this particular farm from others using or transmitted by the central services. Yeah, so this is one point, and even like we have for check-in, we have brooding equipments. This is you need only once in a year or in 1 year and a half. So normally a cluster of breeder farms sharing the brooding equipments. This is very important that we have to clean them, we have to sanitize and disinfect, and we have to focus on the downtime as well. And then in breeder operations, I told you already, we have a lot of activities related to management. Yes, like the downtime from the very beginning. And then we have the operators. We have operators that live outside. We don't know whether they have native chickens. They have contacts to wild birds. We don't know. Yeah, so we don't know the status of the workers. Of course, we need to make the rodents and parasite proof our farms. Ventilation density, I've touched already. We need to add litter for some time, so we need to buy litter and bring the litter in. And then, of course, later on we have nest boxes. We have to pull the nest boxes once they start producing. Then the egg trays, egg pens, they are really actually moving between hatchery and farm. So all this will bear a risk for infection into a breeder farms. So after we know all the risk and we know that the biosecurity is very important, we have to understand why the bird is responding to a ND outbreak like it is. Yeah. So in breeders is mainly the egg production drop. So we have to see that basically the first line of response is actually the immune interferon stimulating genes and the interferon production. And then later on, we have the cytokines, the inflammatory cytokines. Then we have the adaptive immunity with cellular immunity and humoral immunity. So this is just an overview, but in a particular about the immunity, we have these two kind of immunity. Yeah? So we have the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. Yeah? So innate immunity, you have the dendritic cells, the macrophage, the monocytes, basically, and then you have the heterophils, and in chicken is the neutrophils, and you have others, inflammation, eosinophil. But for adaptive immunity, you have the T cell response and the B cell response. The B cell response are the antibodies, and the T cells response are either helper cells or the T lymphocyte cytotoxic cells. Yeah. So how they interact after they are challenged with Newcastle disease or any virus, basically they have these two pathways. Yeah. So both innate immunity and adaptive immunity, they have two pathways. Yeah. One is the protection against any infections, and the second one is the elimination of virus-infected cells. One, the virus is breaching the barrier here and then infect cells. We need to eliminate those cells, yeah, and we have both innate immunity and adaptive immunity. So for the innate immunity, the main keywords is interferon. Yeah, we know the interferon is very important to make non-infected cells basically immune against any infections because they are blocking. They are actually blocking on the binding on the receptor, and they will actually synthesize viral inhibition proteins. Yeah, so so the viral mRNA replication is can be stopped here. So for the adaptive immunity is clearly we need neutralizing antibodies. Yeah, so antibodies that can stop the virus and neutralize the virus from and prevent from infection infect the the cells. Yeah, so we need neutralizing antibodies. In the innate immunity, to eliminate the virus, we have these natural killer cells. Yeah, so very important. They will detect. They will triggered by the cytokines. They will triggered and find the virus-infected cell, and it will kill the cell. Yeah, and in the T cell response, we have these T lymphocytes or the CTLs, which actually have the similar function like the natural killer cells, but this is in the adaptive immunity. So we know already that we have these two pathways, but in the course of infections, unfortunately, you have here the virus titer build up, and then after 2 weeks, the chicken will be able to clean the body from the virus, and we will actually kill all these infected cells and kill the virus as well. So this takes about 2 weeks. This is in ND the same, this is in H9 the same, this is even in coronavirus like SARS-CoV-2 the same, yeah, like in COVID, yeah. So the first response, as I said, 2 to 3 days is interferon alpha and beta type 1 interferon, and then it will exhaust very fast, yeah. Then the second one, it will be the natural killer cells. This is the innate immunity followed by the adaptive immunity. Then you have the CTLs coming and then destroy also the virus and the cells. And then the last is the response of the antibodies. Yeah. So if you see like this, and you will, of course, the majority of the of the action will be by these two kind of mechanism, and between like the first, like let's say the first 7 to 10 days, it will because of this mechanism, yeah, and this destroy basically your organs and then causing inflammation. That's why because the antibody is the only one only mechanism we need actually to prevent long-term infection, we do vaccination. So then we have actually antibody protection in the beginning already. So this is the idea behind vaccination. So once we see what is going on in the battlefield, mainly this is Oviduct. Of course, in other cells as well, you will see spleen, you will see other organs, but in Oviduct, because we are dealing with laying birds, these are the first, the major or the most important organs as it's related to egg production. Yeah, so we will see all these inflammations and the necrosis in the field, and a lot of the cases, once we have ND challenge, we do emergency vaccination. Yeah, so this is an issue everywhere in the world. People are doing this to vaccinate with live vaccines and to do emergency vaccinate, but this is exactly the wrong thing, because once the birds are impacted with the disease, with the field challenge, don't vaccinate sick chicken. Yeah, so otherwise you will cause this egg production drop like this. Yeah, and then you will see in histopath, you will see a lot of actually what is left over from the battle between the immune cells and the virus infected cells. Yeah, you have all these lymphocyte infiltrations, you have hemorrhage, you have actually duct ectasia, you have here you have the edema, so water or liquid will fill the empty spaces, and then you will see basically this bird will not able to produce hatching eggs anymore. So in summary, for the first part, we know that Newcastle disease is a global threat to the poultry industry. It is endemic in many countries. So even people said, okay, it's not, we have occasionally, we have season, but it is endemic. It is in the chicken, it is in the wild birds, it is everywhere. So we need to control it. The only way to control is using vaccination. Yeah. So because vaccination, we want to minimize the clinical disease and mortalities. Yeah. But vaccination is not meant to be used as a treatment. So emergency vaccination is very harmful to the infected birds. Yeah. The only means to prevent infections and hence diseases is biosecurity and animal husbandry. Yeah. So we need to focus on this. Yeah. So animal husbandry and biosecurity or vaccination is not to compensate these two important pillars in the breeding operations. And then I've touched a little bit on immunology, because we know that innate immunity precedes the adapted immunity or the adaptive immunity. But again, this process of elimination of the infected cells or and the virus, of course, will cause inflammation, necrosis, and destruction of the oviduct, which will lead to the egg production disorder. So this is, we know that we cannot prevent infections. None of the vaccine will be able to do this unless you really go to a matching vaccine, and this will be the third part of my presentation. So of course we are talking about Newcastle disease viruses. Yeah, so there's a lot of paper which says actually ND is one serotype. Yeah, so there's cross reaction in serology and in protection. This is true. Yeah, so if you can ensure that you have a titer of HI titer of 5, so you will prevent the birds from dying. Yeah, so that's why birds in production, they will not die from ND, but they will cause, because they still get infected, and because you know there's a lot of antigenic subtypes, distinct antigenic subtypes, and you cannot protect against infection. Then this is all published. Yeah, so and you can go and Google for literature talking about this, that the current vaccine subtypes allow high level of virus shedding and challenge. Yeah. So this is not the solution for us. Yeah. The other classification people might use is pathotyping. So you look at ICPI and mean dead time. Yeah. But we know the birds is suffering from ND. We can see already. We don't need this classification. We know this is a velogenic strain. Yeah. So of course, since like Vaksindo or in Jaffa, we are isolating viruses, we do ICPI tests, and then we can confirm it. But mainly you don't need it to do the ICPI. You can do actually mean dead time in eggs, and you can see if it's less than 60 hours is of course this is velogenic strains. And most of the velogenic strain actually killed the embryo within 2 days. Yeah, so 40 hours already. Yeah. So if we talk about ND, and since 2012, people look at actually genotyping. Yeah, so there are 21 genotypes and more serotypes out there. And we have, of course, the commercial vaccine. They are in genotype 1 and 2. And then we have in Malaysia, we have also a standard strain or Komarov. These are genotype 3, but they are basically here, the commercial vaccines. And then you can see you have in between the genotype 4 until 6, and then you have a big chunk of genotype 7. And in the meantime, there are 20 genotypes out there. And because a lot of them have subtypes, yeah, so genotype 7A started with A and ended with H and J. And so this is, we actually have to combine it, and this has been done by Dimitrov et al. In 2019. They reduced the number of subgenotypes, and so basically the genotype 7, you have three, basically two groups, yeah, the genotype 2 and genotype 7 1.1. Yeah, so these are the the origin strain, and these are the new classification. And here's 13AB. Why I put 13AB? Because this is the two strains which are actually causing outbreak in South Asia, in the Indian subcontinent, a part of the genotype 7. Yeah. So these are mainly the panzootic strains in the world. You can say all over Asia until South Africa, you have all these kind of strains circulating. So that's why the group with Patty Miller in Southeast Poultry Research Lab in Athens, in Georgia, and they identify basically back in 2015 that in her paper here that the genotype 7, I and H and 13B, basically these are the panzootic strain, because you can find it everywhere. You can find in the Philippines, you can find in Indonesia, but also in Pakistan and in Turkey and in South Africa. So you have everywhere the genotype 7I circulating. Yeah. So we need to understand this, and so we need to also to look at those particular strains and use them in a better vaccine to prevent the egg production drop. So the genotype 7 in this case, we compare with Andila sota, and basically you can see their identity of 82% only. So 18% are different in genetic, and in total about 417 amino acid changes between these two viruses. And again, the group in Serpel in Athens in Georgia, they said, okay, there's a correlation between vaccine failure and the reduced ability of classical vaccine to significantly decrease the virus replication and shedding. So if we want to prevent the shedding, we need high levels of neutralizing antibodies, which is actually made up of the same genotype of this challenge virus. So this is very clear, and this is where actually we started working with matching strains, and this will also part of my third part of the presentation. So if we talk about, of course, vaccine, yeah, we need to understand these three words here. So this is actually have been used a lot in AI, but not in Newcastle disease. Yeah. So if you talk about potency of the vaccine, it's just the ability of the vaccine to produce antibodies. Yeah. So protective antibodies, it means a level of minimum 2 power 5, yeah, in HI. So this is, the vaccine is potent, can prevent mortality, morbidity, clinical signs, yeah. And this is, and to test it, we do challenge tests, yeah, and we can show it, and this is the efficacy of the vaccine. Yeah. So if you talk about effectiveness, this is actually how effective is the vaccine in the field. Yeah, we are not dealing with SPF chickens here. We're dealing with populations and under commercial condition. So we need much more higher specific antibody levels, and there are neutralizing antibodies and to prevent virus infection, replication, and shedding. Yeah. So these three words we need to bear in mind. Yeah. My vaccine is potent. Yes, it's efficacious in the lab, but it is not effective in the field. So we will not solve the problem here. So HI test. Why I prefer HI test? Because we can use the field circulating strain as a test antigen. Yeah, there is some, and then we can also validate as well. And of course, people said, okay, you need SPF chickens, you need to produce the red blood cells from a specific pathogen-free chickens, but this is worth it. This is cheap. This is cheaper than ELISA, and it gives more idea about neutralizing antibodies. Yeah, and these are three papers. I put it here, and basically they clearly say it here. If you want to have positive titer is 4, but you need a protective titer is actually minimum is 5. And then, but still with a titer of 2 power 4 or 2 power 5, you still have prolonged shedding. Once your bird get infected, you need put actually the HI titer until 8 and higher, and actually to reduce the shedding. Yeah. And then again, Patty Miller in her 2013 publication, she said, fewer variants are shed when the vaccine strain is related homologous to the challenge strain. So this is again, we are talking about matching vaccines here. For ELISA, there's a lot of ELISA out there, and they are based all on the same. They are using inactivated ND, whole ND virus and coated on the plate. And this is just for biocheck. We compare that. Basically, we want a titer of 5 in HI. It means we need a titer of 5,000 to 6,000. Yeah, so at least. But if you want to get a titer higher, like to 12,000 to 14,000, this is even better. Yeah. So this is the range we need, and we know that the ELISA is very sensitive, more sensitive than HI, but the HI is specific. Yeah. So we can use it as seromonitoring, but we cannot differentiate what is causing the issue, whether this is a field infection or this is a vaccine serology, vaccine antibody titer. And if you talk about potency of the live vaccine and the killed vaccine is clear, I put here the threshold of 2 power 5. This is where we can prevent mortality, and this is, you can see, whatever live vaccine you are using, you can see the pattern is the same. Well, after vaccination, it goes up, and then it goes down at about 8 weeks. This is why all the vaccine manufacturing suggests using vaccine interval between 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. So this is after vaccinations go up, and then it goes after 8 weeks, it goes down again, and then. For ND killed vaccine, we have to put a threshold higher. Yeah, so it's about 2 power 6, right 2 weeks after vaccination. So you need really to look at, and it's related to HAU of the vaccine, but it's also related to the antigen content as well. Yeah, so before in the activation and then after inactivation. So you can see between genotype 7 and the Lasota, both we have checked, and you can see the genotype 7 is more immunogenic than ND Lasota. Yeah. So this is you need to bear in mind, and this pattern, the 2 log differences, you will see later in my slides from the field as well. So again, high antigen, we know we need a titer of 2 power 5 in individual birds. But since we are dealing with population, we need to push it higher, yeah? Because the CV of 10 or 15, it means we need a titer of almost 2 power 7 and 8, yeah? So like this, we have a 2 power 8, but this is using ND Lasota, and still after ND, we see the egg drop, yeah, and the infection, because we have non-neutralizing antibodies in this case, rather than neutralizing antibodies. So we need really to be careful using, just rely on serial monitoring as well, but we need to use the matching antigen to the field virus here, so the genotype 7 in this case. So we know, I told you already that many countries, ND is exotic. It means endemic in chickens, in birds. So it is entrenched in a lot of production systems. So in this case, ND vaccination is just a control tool to reduce shedding and transmission. Yeah, it is not a tool to eradicate. So we cannot eradicate ND anymore. Yeah, so we need just to control. Yeah, and if you use homologous and specific matching antibody vaccines, we can produce also neutralizing antibodies that can reduce this viral replication and transmission as well. Yeah. So this is the summary of all the papers I'm quote in the earlier slides. And this is a test where actually you can do as well, but of course you need the cell lines. Yeah, you need proper cell lines. It's basically this a plaque reduction neutralization test, or PRNT test, where you actually vaccinate chickens. You take the sera, you do a dilution, you mix with antibodies. In this case, is from the anti-ND Lasota sera. You mix the antibodies, you infect cells, and you will see a super neutralization due to antigenic match here, 100% antigenic match. So there is no plaques here, can be seen here. But if you use the same ND Lasota sera or antibodies, neutralizing antibodies against ND Lasota, you mix with the genotype 7, and then you make the dilution series, and then you infect the cells, then you will see with the lowest dilution, you see a lot of plaques, and then you can see how it goes. Then you can determine the 50% decrease in plaques there. So this is we call the PRNT50, and this is where you can, I summarize here, yeah, because in Indonesia we have genotype 7H and I, and many Asian countries as well. The ND Lasota antisera can inhibit the ND Lasota virus by 100%, but all the other genotype 7 viruses is between 6% only until maximum 50%, because they even they are like genotype 7H, and here they're the similar, but you see they are different subtypes, subgenotypes, and sub-antigenic types. So the ND Lasota will not able to neutralize or inhibit the virus, yeah, properly. Yeah. So this is the cause why you still have infection in the field, and this is why you see subsequently the egg production drop in laying hens as well. So we know about the laying hens issues, but what happens with ND outbreak in commercial broilers? Yeah, why I say this is a correlation with the ND outbreaks in breeders, because if first, of course, we know the broiler chicks, they are fast growing birds, and they become the lifespan of the broiler becomes shorter and shorter. So to get a 2 kilo bird, you need only 32 until 35 days only, and then you can see basically this is the immune secondary immune organ, which is actually the bursa, and not sorry, that's the primary one. The secondary is the spleen, And then you can see basically the bursa will mature after 3 weeks. Yeah, so you have only basically the fourth week and the fifth week, 2 weeks actually for your bird to respond against the vaccination efforts you made. Yeah, because before you will see, of course, maternal antibody is going down, and then after 21 days, 24 days, actually you will see the response of the vaccines here. Yeah, you applied earlier, and basically you can see between single comb white leghorn, which is the layer type birds, and the brawler. This is in Gisela Earth paper from Arkansas University. You can see basically in the brawler the body weight to the bursa body weight ratio is very, very low. Yeah, so you can see that because it's a fast growing bird, the bursa cannot support that fast growing bird. Yeah, so because the bird the genetic companies, they're selecting for all this but not against viral disease resistance. This is just a particular general resistance against gut health issues. So this is then what we have seen. Yeah, this egg production drop. The acute phase is 2 weeks, and the convalescence phase is could be longer. And if you set the hatching eggs from this period, of course, this period you can see we have lower hatch. Yeah, this is hatchability is down here. Yeah, it could be between 5 to 10% lower hatch. What does it mean? This means that the hatching eggs is contaminated actually by the virus, by the ND virus, and then you have lower hatch. But at the same time, you contaminate the hatcher in your hatchery, and then you have some birds, they are weak because of malnutrition, because during this time you will also see a drop in feed in appetite, also feed intake as well. So basically you have malnutrition chicks, and but also you have early contamination in hatcher, and then you will see ND outbreak in vaccinated broilers be below that 14 days. Yeah, this is just to show you. This is at 15 days. You can see the daily mortality increase, and then you see the cumulative depletion mortality 6, 8, 14, 45, 55. So increase very, very fast. Yeah, and this is because simply you use these hatching eggs, you hatch them, and to produce the chicks. Yeah. The second pattern in broiler, if you see a late mortality like this, yeah, of course, this most probably come from hatching egg from the convalescence phase, which actually you have a seroconversion in your breeders, and you have high maternal antibody titers, and actually which interfere the live vaccines. And then, of course, because of the malnutrition here, you have ununiform breeders as well. And then in the farm, in the broiler farm, most of the live vaccines, you use drinking water applications, and this is very problematic because you have weak birds, you have small birds, you have larger birds, and the drinking behavior is different. And then the outcome of the water vaccination is different as well. So you may face another outbreak when challenged at a later stage. Yeah. So we have two scenarios in the broilers, one early break, one is a late breaks, and both are actually related to the breeder health as well. So how to prevent the breeder issue? So we have to know that this is just a physiology development of a broiler breeder. By week, you can see like this, and then you can basically see that the frame is ready by 15 weeks, but then it starts actually with the reproduction organ. And even the broiler breeder will start producing at 26 weeks of age, but the organ is actually ready already. So in the second part of the rearing period, which is between 15 and 22 weeks, which is very important that you look for respiratory signs. You have to go into your chicken shed in the night, you listen to the bird, whether they have respiratory sign, they have a viral challenge or not. And if yes, take swab and then send to the lab, do PCR, and to identify what is the cause of the respiratory disease or clinical signs you see in this age. Yeah. Because when you got ND challenge here, even the bird is before production, you will see problem during production period. And this is what we have simulated. Yeah, Jaffa, we have 50,000 bird PS farm, which I use as the trial farm. And basically we simulate actually the ND field challenge during these critical periods I've shown you before. This is in a single age farm, but this farm we can also do multi-age. So this is very helpful to understand. Yeah. So if we challenge genotype 7H at low dose, actually the titer in this is already about 2 power 10 in HI with genotype 7. With ND Lasota is 2 power 10. 2 power 8. So we inoculate in all the birds by eye drop 10 to the 2 EID50 very virulent genotype 7H. Why we do this low dose? Because we do in eye drop. We don't want to make the birds blind. Yeah. So you can see the titer is increased and the production is not disturbed. Yeah. So this is what we understand already. Yeah. If you get infected in the early stage, no problem. Yeah. So they will not affect your production. But this is the same farm we simulate in a multi-age setup. So this flock is vaccinated between 12 to 14 weeks, not vaccinated, but inoculated with this very virulent ND. You can see basically majority of the houses, okay, we have single houses we drop, but this is because triggered by other things as well, but mainly this is good. But if you inoculate between 16 and 17 weeks, you can see this is before lay, yeah? And until peak production, you have a lot of issues with peak production, and also production later on. Yeah, and then if you have a rolling reaction infections, because there are 2 flocks in that particular farms, and that will get a challenge at 30 to 34 weeks, and you see the egg production drop. Yeah, so this is very important to understand when ND will be affecting our birds. Basically, if you're going back to this is all over 15 to at the end of lay. Yeah? So we have only, and in this period, 0 to 7, 8, this is where the titer is low, we can face clinical signs. So we have a small windows where actually the bird don't suffer from the ND infections. Yeah. So this is again the summary that we need to look for a more homologous strain, yeah, with the same genotype. And in summary, Newcastle disease virus has been classified by serotyping and by pathotyping, but this is no use of for us, yeah, because in Vaksindo, in Jaffa, we isolate all the ND viruses. Then we have to do genotyping, and the genotypes 7 and 13B are the panzootic strain in Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And we need to have neutralizing panzootic virus ND viruses or neutralizing antibodies against these ND viruses, which are exotic in many of these countries. And of course, commercial broilers very much depends on the condition in the breeders. So any outbreaks in commercial broilers correlates more or less with the conditions in the breeders. And of course, in the breeders, will causing egg production drop or egg production issues depends on the infections of the oviduct between 15 and 40 and even 50 weeks of age. Yeah, so I just put this as really a warning to us. We need to focus with 50 birds turning 14, 15 weeks. We need really to tighten up the biosecurity and prevent the birds from getting infections. But of course, what is next? Yeah. So again, I remind you of my friend Albert Einstein. He said, doing things over and over again and expecting a different result is insane. Yeah. So we cannot go with what we have done before. We need to change. Yeah. So basically, there are two concepts out there. We go with ND genotype matching vaccines, or we go with ND chimeric vaccines. Yeah. Chimeric is a recombinant vaccines which actually use part of this ND genotype. ND in other viruses, we can use ND genotype 2 ND Lasota vector vaccines expressing the genotype 7 fusion gene or fusion protein, or we use others using HVT or Marek vaccine, herpes virus vector ND vaccines. Yeah, but in JAPFA we prefer actually the live genotype 7 vaccines, live and killed vaccines. But there is, of course, we can produce a killed vaccine using autogenous vaccines, using the wild type ND and producing very fast killed vaccines. But we use reverse genetic live and killed vaccines here. So consideration for development of application of reverse genetic, this comes again from AI, but basically this is just a tool to produce a live attenuated ND vaccine. Yeah. So if you produce a killed vaccine, you may not get the full benefit of the reverse genetic technology. So this is only if you use if you want to have a live attenuated genotype matching vaccines. Yeah. So if you use, of course, chimeric vaccine, mixing genes between two surface proteins like HN and F, these are very problematic because from different strains, they may not be compatible. Yeah, so you will affect basically the replication of the virus in eggs. Yeah, I will show you also in minutes about this as well. Yeah. So genotype 7, yeah, this is just, but it could be any virulent ND vaccines, any ND virus. Yeah, so it's basically they differ very much on this Clifford side on the furin, on the F fusion gene. Yeah, so if you have a virulent motif like this, it is activated by furin, and the furin is a protease which can be found in all the chicken bodies, organs. So that's why this virus is systemic. Yeah, it can replicate everywhere. But if you have a virulent motif in your F gene, then it can be only activated by trypsin, and trypsin is localized in trachea, in respiratory and respiratory tract, and also in the gut digestive tract. Yeah, so that's why this virus will replicate only in certain organs. Yeah, so cannot kill the chicken because it is really avirulent or lentogenic. So based on this collaboration with Maryland University, we actually came out with reverse genetic vaccine for live Newcastle disease vaccine, and based on genotype 7I in this case. And this is just to illustrate the difference between the normal ND infections and replications and the genotype 7, which is actually made by reverse genetic. Yeah. So it is not that simple. You need all these kind of viruses and and clones to produce it, and actually, and then you can produce matching genotype 7 live vaccines. Yeah. And this is published in these papers. You can read it and try to understand. But the fact is, we changed just the cleavage site here. Yeah. So we produce by reverse genetic very, very matching vaccine to the genotype 7I, and it is really apathogenic. Yeah, you can see it cannot form plaques. Yeah, without protease, with protease in this case, trypsin, it will form a little bit. Yeah, so the plaque formation is very limited. Lasota still has some or residue of pathogenic or virulency. And you can see the mean death time is above 127 hours. Lasota is at 116. And the ICPI, intracerebral pathogenicity index, is 0. So this virus has no post-vaccinal reaction. Yeah. So this is compared to Lasota. Yeah. And this is the parent strain, very, very pathogenic. Yeah. Kill birds within 52 hours, and the ICPI is 1.8 out of 2. Yeah, so it's almost maximum. Yeah. So if you talk about broiler vaccination, and this is what we do in Jaffa, yeah, so 100% of our broiler or their chicks, either to our farms or to we sell their chick, which has been vaccinated in the hatchery using this program. Yeah, we genotype 7 live and killed vaccine, and then we booster with drinking water at day 12. Yeah, so, and this is all we do. So for the farmers, is only one vaccination in the farm using a genotype 7. Yeah. Again, we use 100% of our doe chicks are vaccinated. Yeah. In breeder, is this more difficult? It depends of your breeding operation. You have to know what maternal antibody level you have. Of course, it is useless to start at day 1 in breeders, because maternal antibody is still high, unless you have a flock from PS flock from Australia or New Zealand, which they hardly vaccinate against ND. You may start early, but in our case, we purchase our PS from our own GP company. So we start at 7 days, and then again, you can see just a live vaccine, but at 3 weeks, once we can vaccinate the birds intramuscularly, we start already with ND genotype 7 killed vaccine. It is not full dose, it's still 0.3, but it is okay. And then in 7 weeks, we vaccinate full with a kill vaccine and the live vaccines. So our target, as I said before, is at 7 weeks is minimum titer of 7 using homologous genotype 7 antigen for HI, and at 10 weeks is above 10. Yeah. So this is when you have this titer, then it is okay. Yeah, but of course you need to keep the titer. You know the titer is going down. You need to have at most probably week 15 and week 22, you need to have a combination of live and kill vaccine as well. Yeah. So this is just to show you our breeder vaccination titer. So, and the difference between genotype 7 and using Lasota antigen is 2 log differences. Yeah, and the CV here is about 10. Yeah, you can see very, very uniform. Yeah, and the production, you can see this is if you talk about chimeric vaccine basically they use the Endilasota virus. They delete the F gene of the Endilasota and they include a genotype 7 F gene here. And then basically you have a chimeric R. lasota, recombinant lasota with the F, in this case from Korea. And we know between the upon infections, this is the virus on top, and this is the this is the virus. This is the host cell with the receptor. And if the HN protein binds on the receptor, then you will see actually conformation change between the HN and the F. So there's some interaction. You can imagine you have a HN of Endilasota and the F from genotype 7. They are not interacting very well. Yeah. Why? Because you can see here, this is the F gene, the F protein, the HN gene and HN protein. In the phylogenetic genetic analysis, they are different. This is the genotype 7 and this is the Endilasota or the vaccine. They are totally different. Yeah. So they are not compatible and they are not likely to work together very well. And that's why you will see lower titer. Yeah. Here, this is just a paper from our group together with the Maryland University around Professor Siba Samal. You can see this is the parental strain, the blue one, the Lasota. And then if you produce R. Lasota and genotype 7, this is the orange one, the titer is very low. Yeah. So you can see this is just a virus titer. And then you can imagine if you have this kind of low titer, then the vaccine will be more expensive and also not very potent to create or to produce antibodies. Yeah. So this is everything related to the chimeric vaccine is actually also already explained in the one of this paper. Yeah. This is the paper which is very important just to show you. You have to combine the genotype 7 F and HN here in combination. You can see this is still not working well with the Lasota vector. So the green one is just the HN, but we are using a pathogenic F genotype 7 F fusion gene, so it can produce. But again, you need this fusion gene in your vaccine. This is from the same paper. Basically, you can see if they are Lasota in trachea and lung, you can actually re-isolate. They're replicating, but once you have this R. Lasota with the genotype 7I fusion protein, it will not replicate very well. Yeah, so you can see. Yeah, so vaccines lacking the ND genotype 7F gene were less effective in preventing shedding of the Indonesian challenge virus. Yeah. And last but not least, HVT vector vaccine. It has some advantages. There's no interference of maternal antibodies, although this is not true as well, because in the breeders you are vaccinated against MAREC using RISPEN and HVT and then of course you have antibodies against HVT as well. So there is some interference, but not against ND. And then if you talk about cell-mediated immunity, very important to eliminate viruses. And of course, you can have long persistency and using 1 or 2 shots only. So booster shots in the field. Yeah. Disadvantage, it is of course a cost factor. The broiler is short lifespan, and you will not benefit from a vector vaccine using HVT. And then you have antibodies against F protein only, but you need also neutralizing antibodies against HN protein. Yeah, so this is, and then of course the HVT vector passage level of the the vector virus is very important, yeah, because maternal antibodies may interfere as well here. And then there's no protection against egg production drop, yeah, because you prevent only against mortality, but not against egg production drop. So there are 3 brands of HVT vector vaccines, and I put here, and these are the patents. You can look at the patents, and they explain what is the plug forming units of the HVT vector in per dose. Yeah, you can see this is typical. This company is actually has very, but if this virus, this Marek vaccine virus, is adapted to a certain cell line, in this case it's the fibroblast cells, it may take very slow. So that's why you have high titers, but the take of the vaccine is slow. Yeah, and then the origin of the F gene is a Texas GB. This is a genotype 2. Yeah, and then this vaccine has the best titer in terms of infectiveness, because it is less attenuated. They use a F gene from ND clone 30, which is a Lasota strain from 1946, which is genotype 2. Yeah, this is from 48. Yeah, and then the other company, they put also a attenuated strain in there, and the protection according to this to the patents filed is 91%, and they use genotype 3, which is a Sato strain, because this vector vaccine has been developed by Bioimmune, and Bioimmune was actually acquired by this current company, had a research station in Japan. Yeah, so they developed this. Yeah, so you can see the strain, where the F gene come from, 1930, 46, 48. So we are outdated. Yeah, and this is the paper coming from the paper from this vaccine, which shows basically it is not a standalone vaccine. The HVT-ND, which is the dark column here, until 6 weeks is in HI titer of 1 only. You can imagine if there is a field challenge, then you have a Sato strain F gene there, so you will not have enough neutralizing antibodies against genotype 7 in this case. Yeah, you will face outbreaks. Yeah, then after you actually booster with live and killed vaccine, you have a titer and it goes up here. But again, this is not able to prevent egg production drop, which is the culprit of all cases in breeders and in broilers. So in a nutshell, I want to close my presentation. ND in poultry is a global issue, is the second OIE list A disease. Currently circulating in Asia, Middle East, and Africa, we have genotype 7s, we have HID and 13B. Then there's huge differences between the genotype 7s and the Lasota, for instance, more than 70%. And the vaccination program is actually is not enough to prevent virus infections. We need a minimum titer of 5, and to prevent egg production drop, you need homologous vaccine as low as a titer of HI of 10. Yeah, so that's why, remember, at 7 weeks we need a titer of 7, and at 10 weeks we need a titer of 10. Yeah, so this is very important to understand. Matching neutralizing antibodies decrease virus dissemination and prolong shedding in our farm. That's why we need both, yeah, live and kill vaccine. and we need both in homologous vaccines. Yeah, and for design for breeder vaccination program, it is not just to protect the organs from very early infections, not prevent the mortality in the early infection, but we need to protect the reproduction organs from very, very early age. Yeah, from 9 to 12 weeks, we need already multiple genotype 7 live NKLs. Yeah, and then for hatchery vaccine, it provides the best protection for broilers because we have a full dose of killed vaccine at 0.1 cc at day old. With live vaccines at day old, and then booster by a live vaccine at day 12 to 13. Yeah, and then biosecurity and management is pivotal for the prevention. So with that, I would like to close my presentation. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Tigo, for your very informative and interesting presentation. I'm sure it's raised some questions, and I think your colleague, Dr. Yusman, will show and then read out the questions for Dr. Tigo to answer.
Does everybody can see the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Please, Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed.
Hello, everyone.
You put on full screen mode, please. Okay, the first question from Dr. Balaguru Nathan from Emirates Poultry Farms. Past few years, all the vaccine manufacturers introduced vector vaccine, combined Marek and ND, and they are claiming no booster doses are required while laying cycle until batch reaches age of 65 above. Does it work as they claim? What would you be your suggestion? Actually, I've presented this in my presentations that it depends on the HVT vector, of course, whether the vaccine will replicate efficiently in the chickens, in the young chicken, yeah, because if it is too adapted in cell lines or in tissue culture, it will lose some immunogenicity and it will take slower to take. Yeah, so if you and in breeders, of course, you can do it. Yeah, but this will not prevent production drop. Yeah, so I've explained this. It has all to do with how to prevent infections. Yeah, this is about matching HN protein and matching F protein. Yeah, so in this case, they have HVT-ND, but they use ND F gene, ND virus F gene from various viruses from either Texas GB or ND clone, Lasota, or Sato strain, which is actually from the 1930s to 1948. Yeah. So it is not going to work against production drop. Yeah. We request for vaccination program against ND during lay period in broiler breeders. Yeah, from Martin Jensen. So in our operations, I told you in my presentation, I don't want to see emergency vaccination, also not by accident. Yeah. So if you use live vaccines or during your production period, then it might be that you have a field challenge there, and then you are not aware of the field challenge, and you give a live vaccines, and that will actually make the disease more severe. Yeah, so we have a lot of experience with this, and so we are using killed vaccine only, and we use genotype 7 because these are circulating in our country. Yeah. The next question. So PRNT result very interesting, as it show different viruses the same genotype 7 HI genotype. Did you find ICPI, MDT in those genotypes also from Nadina Marin. Yeah. Yes, Nadim. We see different ACPIs. Yeah. So even we have genotype 7H and 7I. Apart from different viruses, they have different ICPIs. Yeah. So you can do it, but this is of course you need to look for. It doesn't help you in this case. Yeah. The mean dead time is vary also between 50 to 60 days. And this is all indication that is a virulent ND. Why do farmers still use Lasota vaccine while the virus challenge is different in genotypes? Yeah. From Haris Tiadi, because Lasota is cheap. Yeah. So Lasota is about $1 product for 1,000 doses. Yeah, it's very cheap. You don't make the vaccine company happy as well because it is a commodity. Yeah, and people are not benefit from that vaccine. Neither the manufacturer nor the farmer. Yeah, and it has, of course, it is the most immunogenic virulent lentogenic strain out there, and people always associate immunogenic virulence and ability to prevent mortality. So they correlate with ND Lasota. Yeah. So we know the ND Lasota 0.4 has a 0.4 ICPI, and in young birds, you cannot use in day old. Once you use in day old, you see prolonged respiratory signs. And there are a lot of paper. I didn't put it here, but I can show you that they cause really some damage in the trachea as well. Yeah. Then Mr. Adesina Abdurrahman, my concern is why are we not having massive production of NDV genotype 7 vaccine for vaccination in replacement of the common Lasota? We know since the former is more potent, efficacious than the late. Yeah. Yes, it depends of company policy. Yeah. So the multinational company, they would like to have one solution for produce in their countries for all over the world, and of course, in the broiler is the money. Yeah? So if the main issue in broiler is of course the maternal antibody interference of live vaccine. So that's why they go for HVT vector vaccine. Yeah. So this is why a vaccine company is making money with, of course, with the number. Yeah. So the volume. Yeah. So if you have the volume of this HVT ND, which is more expensive than normal live vaccines, and then is used in breeders like Indonesia, we have around about 3.4 billion day-old chicks. Or so if you vaccinate them, of course you will have an economic impact for the particular company, but not for the farmers. And in Jaffa and Vaksindo, we are different because we own our own breeding operations. We own our broiler operations, and we produce our vaccine we need. Yeah, so it is not that if we don't need it, like Marek, no issues, the vaccine is still working. We don't need to change. But for ND, AI, IB, IBH, all this kind of issue, the multinational company unfortunately have no receipt, so no concept. Yeah, so that's why we are different. Yeah. Mr. Ali Ghafour, why have some breeders with high titers affected with ND? Yes, you have again, you need to know when you see the high titers. Yeah, so if you have high titers like in between, let's say 12 16 weeks of age. So you know there's a challenge already happens there. So vaccination titer using particular ND Lasota and kind of vaccines, you have limitation. The highest titer will be at 2 power 8 and 9, and this is not matching. Yeah. So then you see a titer increase, let's say at 20 weeks of age to 2 power 10. Yeah. And then you know this is not from the vaccine, this is from the field infection. Yeah. And once you have the field infection at 20 weeks of age for sure, and then you use traditional your live vaccines to round up your rearing vaccination program, then it will affect your production. Yeah. It will cut your peak, or it will causing other production issues as well. Yeah. So as I said, you need to understand where the virus came in. Yeah. At what age. Yeah. That's why after 15 weeks of age, between 15 and 22 weeks, you need to send your workers every week, 2 or 3 times into the shed and to listen to the chicken, whether they have some respiratory signs or challenge in the field. Yeah. How you edit the protease? Did you add it to the tissue culture or combine it with the virus? Or it's combined with the virus. Yeah. So you can do it there. And then, is there any difference between ND genotypes 7 and 11 in PM lesions? From Dr. Muhammad Al-Haji. I'm not aware of genotypes 11 here, so I don't know whether you...
I think 2, doctor. I think it's 2.
Oh, 2 is 2. Okay. 2, yeah. The difference in genotype is I haven't put it here, but it's about 417 different amino acid residue. Yeah. So and in particular the genotype 2, there's no lesions. Yeah, because it is a lentogenic strain. Yeah. It's so it doesn't replicate in a lot of the organs. Yeah. So you can easily, if you open the birds and you take out the brain, and you see there's actually a brain barrier for genotype 2 viruses. The genotype 2 cannot replicate in brains, but the genotype 7 you can find it. Yeah. So that's why the difference between those genotype and PM lesions is very simple. If you see virulent lesions, you see egg production drop, this is a very virulent ND. It could be genotype 7, I, H, it can be J, it can be genotype 13B, but it can never be genotype 2. Yeah, so there's very important to understand this. Yeah. It is possible to manufacture a conventional inactivated genotype 7 ND vaccine with a genotype 7 ND strain. The problem in breeders is not titer. The problem is no protection in spite of high titer. Yes, this is, I mentioned already, yes, you can do it. You can produce an inactivated genotype 7 killed vaccine using the wild type or the virulent strain. But of course, you need to make sure that you grow to high titers. Yeah, in production. You need you need not just the egg infectious dose after harvest, but before inactivation. But after inactivation, you have to measure other things as well, yeah, to see whether the virus is still a whole virus or it breaks down into debris, and which actually will result in non-neutralizing antibody as well. Yeah, so you have to there's a lot of tricks to produce it, and then it's not easy that you produce in your lab. You need to really doing in a vaccine manufacturing site. Yeah. So I think this.
The last, or maybe still any question from Dr. Ahmed?
Okay, from my friend Putu in India. Do increasing vaccination dose can help to increase vaccination titer? Yeah, no, yeah, you cannot do very much. You have to rely on the vaccine manufacturer. Yeah, so if you do like double dose, you do 1 milliliter of killed vaccine, for instance, and you inject into the bird. Of course, it takes longer for the birds to absorb the vaccine, and of course, you can have a prolonged effect, but it's not to increase the vaccination titer. Yeah, and if then your vaccine process is not or the the needle is not clean enough, so you will face maybe a challenge of some issues in the muscle, that you will see some how you say it, because the absorption is not fast enough, then you can see that the media, the emulsion will be the media for the bacteria to grow, then you have a bacterial infection as well. So I wouldn't go for 1 milliliter dose, but you can do like instead of 0.5, 0.7 you can do, but rather than this, you need to trust the vaccine manufacturer. We have to make sure that the vaccine, the virus titer is high per dose, yeah, of 0.5 ml. Yeah. What is a possible disease when egg production dropped during peak around 6 to 11%, but HPT still maintains standard level and even above that? Yeah, then I think there are other issues. Yeah, of course, it can have ND, but ND is basically it will cause more drop than 6 to 11%. Okay, you have a matching vaccine, so maybe the drop is less. So you, in this case, you have a very good protective neutralizing antibody. Yeah. The drop came in this case maybe from the loss of appetite at the first couple of days of infections. So you will see whether you can just monitor the feed intake in your breeders, whether it is prolonged. Yeah. So normally they at peak production, they eat very fast. Between 2 to 2.5 hours, they clean up. Is the cleanup time. But if it's prolonged to, like, say, 3 hours, 4 hours, then it will cause, of course, production drop as well. Yeah. Next. Which antigen do you suggest for HI test for this vaccine? Yeah, you just use the genotype 7s that circulate in your country, and then you just can inactivate it, grow them inactivated and using as HI antigen. So don't use ND Lasota, ND Ulster, or any other strain. This doesn't give you the any benefit there. Again, from Paputu, for broiler breeder, instead of vaccination with ND Gumboro genotype 7 live vaccine by spray, why not by eye drop? In breeders, we do by eye drop. Yeah, all the vaccine we do by eye drop. Only the day one in the broiler we do with spray, using spraying cabinet in the hatchery. In breeders, at 7 days, at 21 days, at 7 weeks, we do all eye drop. Yeah, because simply in a breeder setup, bird can easily hide if you go in with a sprayer, so they can hide between the feeders, between the drinker lines. They can hide between. So you need really have application, 1% application. Yeah, you need the famous word. You need to reach herd immunity, yeah? And this is minimum 85%. During laying period of breeders, what will you suggest for mucosal immunity? In addition to humoral immunity developed by kill vaccines, can we go with live genotype 7? What schedules should we use? Yes, we do genotype 7 live and killed all over during the production. Sorry, during the real period, we just use kill vaccine. We do use don't do live vaccine because with 3 times killed vaccine between 26 weeks and between 30 weeks and every 10 weeks, we do like 34 weeks, 45 weeks and 55 weeks. And even you can, it is still okay. Yeah. So we don't use live vaccine in production. But if you can control the challenge, you can use it, of course, live and kill together. But this is more expensive than for your operation then. That's all, I think.
I do believe there is some more questions.
Is is there any vaccine available which can provide log10? Yes, our vaccine, as you've seen, of course, is the number of doses you have to apply. We apply, like, you need to apply live and kill vaccine together. And then we can, and using the homologous antigen, you can get log10. Yeah? And in this case, you can use your genotype 7 virus from the field as well as antigen. Which antigen do you suggest for HI test for this vaccine? Yeah, this is a homologous using the Lasota still works, but if you have a titer of Lasota to power 8, so your real titer will be 10 because there's 2 logs difference between genotype 7 and Lasota. If you vaccinate with ND genotype 7, then you go to ND Lasota, you may end up with a titer, HI titer of 2 power 8. Yeah. Okay. Next question. In vector vaccine, there is no shedding, but using live vaccine will make virus shedding. Is this affect? If this will affect the flock? No, because you need some shedding, yeah. Because if you normally you live vaccines, you need to have some shedding, yeah. So because it's very important. Using any live vaccine, you will see some shedding, yeah, and you need those shedding, yeah, because it will actually make the flock uniform vaccinated, yeah. In vector vaccine, this is individual application, and then of course you will get 100%. And again, in vector vaccine, the problem is more in this case the HVT vector vaccine. It's actually the vector vaccinated or not, and high Marek antibody titer, and the third one is of course which insert you put into the HVT vector, whether this is a F gene from a genotype 7 or this is an F gene from a genotype 2 or 3. So this will actually impact your vaccination result or protection. Okay, the next. What is the name of Vaksindo vaccine? Yeah, this is.
Yes.
I'm. Yeah, the Vaximune and the genotype 7. Yeah, we have Vaximune and the genotype NDL or NDL plus IB. In our case, we put IB QX there because QX is the main strain here in Asia. So this is the combination kill vaccine, and for the live vaccine, it is yeah, we can you can ask HOYT, our representative there, and is basically the only reverse genetic real genotype 7 vaccine in the world, yeah, currently, because the Korean vaccine, this is a genotype 7. Sorry, this is reverse genetic vaccine, yes, but this is a chimeric vaccine. This is based on the ND Lasota vector, and they inserted the genotype 7 from Korea. Yeah, so this is not a real genotype 7 vaccine, but this is a chimeric vaccine. And did you produce a live and killed vaccine for the same strain? Yeah, for the currently yes, but we are currently producing or developing a new reverse genetic vaccine for genotype 7H. We are in process, and so later on we have basically genotype 7H and I both in live and killed. Yeah, later on. If you have facility to produce a killed vaccine, you can use your strain in the field, yeah, using a more matching strain to your operations there. Adding HN gene in genotype 7 vaccine affect HI results, but in its reality, it affects on protection against challenge with the virulent virus in field. In reverse genetic vaccine, so if you have you mean the genotype 7 chimeric vaccine, if you put a different F and a different HN combination in your chimeric vaccine or in HVT, so it will first HVT vector vaccine will not work with the HN gene. Yeah, so this is people are still struggling producing HVT and the vector vaccine using HN gene. Yeah, so that's why only F gene is there. Then you need to monitor differently using ELISA, using different DIVA tests actually to show that your vaccine is replicating. Yeah? And then in reverse genetic, of course, if you use a genotype 7 original strain, how you say it, and just delete the Clifford site, the velogenic or the virulent Clifford site, you change it into a apathogenic Clifford site, you have, of course, the virus will replicate very easily and will yield in high antigen titer, and this is then you can use it as live and killed vaccine. Yeah.
So, Dr. Tigo, again, many thanks for your wonderful presentation and your marathon session and answering the questions so comprehensively. I'm sure all the attendees have enjoyed this session and gained some valuable information from it. Could I just say, if anybody has any subsequent questions, observations, comments, would you please address them to my colleague, Dr. Ahmed Magari, and he would be most happy to pass them on to Dr. Tigo or answer them himself. So it just remains for me to thank Dr. Tigo again, Dr. Yusman, Dr. Peter, Dr. Ahmed for all your contributions, and to thank all the attendees for your time. And we look forward to meeting you again in our next webinar. Thank you very much indeed.